Hello everyone, I'm so excited. Thanksgiving is coming and this is the stuffing episode. I've been looking forward to making this. So this week in this video, I am talking about, of course, a little bit of a history of stuffing foods. And then we're going to move forward to how it came to be that we serve the things that we do on our traditional American Thanksgiving table. Now, Canadians, I know you also celebrate Thanksgiving in October, and we will certainly get to you. So I want to talk about stuffing stories. I have a stuffing story. I really want to hear yours. This is why I'm so excited. My mouth is already watering. Isn't this almost everybody's favorite dish on the Thanksgiving table? So let's get started. Let's get to the facts and the history, and then we'll get down to the deliciousness of our personal stories. Now, stuffing is older than Thanksgiving, far older in fact. The ancient Romans were already stuffing birds, fish, mice, and even vegetables with mixtures of herbs, spices, and chopped organ meats 2,000 years ago. Bread was not part of the picture. In the early centuries, stuffing was more about keeping the meat moist and adding flavor from the inside out. In medieval Europe, cooks began blending meat with dried fruits and warming spices like cinnamon and nutmeg. It was an elegant dish that showed off a household's access to imported ingredients. When European settlers came to North America, the idea of stuffing came with them, but the ingredients changed. Wheat flour wasn't always available, but corn was. Early American stuffing was often made from cornbread, herbs, broth, and sometimes oysters or chestnuts, influenced by both indigenous foodways and regional abundance. Stuffing became tied to Thanksgiving in the mid-1800s when food writer Sarah Josepha Hale promoted roast turkey with bread stuffing as the ideal holiday meal. Her influence helped shape the traditional American Thanksgiving menu we recognize today. So the dish we call stuffing or dressing is a blend of ancient technique, medieval flavor, and American adaptation. And every family carries a bit of that history to the holiday table. Now, stuffing isn't just a side dish, it's a regional identity. Across the United States, families make stuffing in very different ways, and each style reflects the history, agriculture, and immigrant influence of that region. New England, bread and herbs are the way to go. The stuffing is traditionally made with white bread, butter, onions, celery, and a lot of dried herbs, especially sage and poultry seasoning. This simple formula dates back to the Pilgrims and early English colonists who used the ingredients they had easy access to, like bread scraps, garden herbs, and local aromatics. It's classic, straightforward, and deeply connected to early American cooking. The South, cornbread stuffing. Now, here in the American South, stuffing is almost always cornbread based and often moist, crumbly, and sometimes mixed with eggs and broth to create a casserole texture. Cornbread became the standard because wheat was harder to grow in the humid South, while corn thrived. Southern cooks also had strong African and indigenous influences that favored cornmeal as a staple. This is why cornbread dressing feels so comforting. It's built from the crops and traditions rooted in the region. Now, over in the Mid-Atlantic, oyster stuffing. Now, especially Maryland and Virginia, oyster stuffing is a long-standing tradition. This goes back to the 18th and 19th centuries when oysters were plentiful, cheap, and common, a working-class food. Chesapeake Bay communities added chopped oysters to bread stuffing for extra moisture and richness. This version survives because it feels historic, a true regional specialty. Now in the Midwest, we've got white bread, butter, and everything in the pan. Midwestern stuffing tends to be soft, buttery, and casserole style, made with white sandwich bread, sometimes saltine crackers, and plenty of celery and butter. This comes from the region's agriculture and dairy roots. Plentiful wheat, affordable bread, and abundant butter. It's the style most likely to include whatever the family has: mushrooms, sausage, apples, reflecting the resourceful, farm-centered cooking of the Midwest. Pennsylvania Dutch. Yes, potato stuffing. In Pennsylvania Dutch country, stuffing is made with potatoes and bread mixed together. Why? German immigrants brought strong potato traditions and potatoes stored well all winter. Combining potatoes and bread also stretched ingredients for large families, a very practical tradition that survived into modern holiday tables. Now let's go to the West Coast. We will see in the Pacific Northwest stuffings like sourdough with wild herbs. Many families use sourdough bread or artisan loaves with mushrooms, leeks, hazelnuts, and wild herbs. This reflects the region's strong artisan bread culture and access to foraged foods, especially mushrooms. It's a stuffing that mirrors the landscape, woodsy, rustic, and seasonal. Now down in the Southwest, chili and cornbread variations can be found. These stuffings are a mix of cornbread, green chilies, cilantro, chorizo, roasted peppers. This blend reflects the region's Mexican and indigenous culinary influences, where corn and chilies are functional ingredients. It adds heat, color, and a depth of flavor unique to the region. Over in Louisiana, you'll find Cajun and Creole stuffing. Louisiana's stuffing is often made with rice instead of bread, seasoned with the Cajun Holy Trinity: onion, celery, and bell pepper, plus spices, sausage, even seafood. The substitution exists because rice was the dominant crop, not wheat, and Creole cuisine traditionally relied on rice-based dishes. This gives stuffing a bold, savory profile you'll rarely see elsewhere. So no matter what your stuffing looks like on your holiday table, it's shaped by the land, the culture, and the people who came before us. Every region tells its own story through this one comforting dish. All right, so this is my non-scripted part where I'm going to start telling you my stuffing story. But one thing I wanted to say, when I was talking about the regional stuffings and the oyster stuffing, now I've never had oyster dressing, oyster stuffing. I can't picture how it would taste, but something I noticed when I started this channel, it's not now, but it was, a lot of it was based on that book from 1897, the Boston Cooking School. And cookbooks, I'll probably state the obvious here, maybe you've never thought about it, but they're generally based on what's popular at the time that the cook who's writing it enjoys and notices about society. So maybe they're, vegetarian, and that's kind of what they focus on, but they're focusing on modern vegetarian of this time. So the things they're making now, of course, 100 years from now, they're going to be vintage, right? Anyway, in that cookbook, there was a large amount of oyster recipes, and it really stood out to me because we don't see that a lot in our more modern cookbooks, and now I see why. It's because they were plentiful and they were very affordable in that time period, which is what I referenced in my script when I was talking about the different regional types of stuffing. If you make oyster stuffing, I'm probably going to ask you about it here in a couple of minutes. So let's get to my stuffing story because I have one. All right, so I live in the South. If you've been around, my father's Swedish, so his kind of take on Thanksgiving, he didn't really have one. And for a good part of my youth, let me preface this. Everyone in my orbit, kind of like when you think about, grandparents, in-laws, parents, sibling, cousin, neighbor, friendsgiving, all of that, everyone cooks well. So regardless of where I would go for Thanksgiving, the meal would always be good. There would be no dreading, the turkey's going to be dry, the gravy's going to be lumpy, whatever else people complain about. That would never be a concern. So the food would always be delicious wherever we went. Now, the stuffing story is this. For many Thanksgivings, one of us that eats together pretty often would make stuffing that had the actual stuffing was tasty. The flavor was good. It was white bread, white sandwich bread, left out, overnight. And the seasoning was perfect. It was kind of velvety when you would eat it, and it was so tasty. However, the ingredient that was put in there that was kind of different, and it turned out to be unpleasant because only the person that made it liked it. The rest of us, not so much. And it was chestnuts. Now, the chestnuts were prepared roasted. And this could have been the problem. But first of all, it added no flavor. And the texture was like a mealy, undercooked piece of bean. And it was chopped so small that there was no eating around it. And it was so frustrating for many of us because the actual stuffing was delicious. The seasoning was perfect. But the texture was unpleasant. So one year, my mother comes to me and she's like, honey, I'm going to make the stuffing this year. I'm like, okay, Mom. Yes, Mom. Okay, I'm down. I'm down. And I come to the kitchen and it's Thanksgiving Day and she's starting to make the stuffing to get ready for the bird. And I saw she had a pan of cornbread, and I was like, I'm already sold because we're Southern. I love me some cornbread. And biscuits, double Southern delicious, right? So the cornbread is cut with this fluffy, tender biscuit, and then it had all the traditional kind of seasonings, at least how our family makes it, which is, throw 2 sticks of butter in a pan, saute up the diced up celery and onion till tender, throw in some sprigs of sage, and then season with the poultry seasoning, toss everything together, put the turkey stock or chicken stock or combo of both over it. We were not an egg house that put egg over it, although I'm not opposed to that. Anyway, so I tasted it and she tasted it before we put it in the bird just to kind of make sure I had enough salt and all that. It was very promising. I was so excited. It was pretty good just like that. All right, so then we sit down at the table and there's a pan of the dressing. It was made as dressing, and then we always would stuff our bird, as our family would. And I had some in both, and oh God, it was like the stuffing angels came down and sang in my ears. It was all I wanted to eat. I didn't want to eat anything else on that table, even though I love Thanksgiving food, all of it. Cranberry sauce and stuffing, just give me all of it. So that to this day is how I make my stuffing. Now, I make it as dressing now because let me tell you, I've done enough. If you're new here, I was a private chef for many years, and I've cooked many Thanksgivings for other families, not just my own. I tend to do a spatchcock style. I break the back, I take the kitchen shears, cut out the spine, and cook it flat so there's nowhere to stuff the actual bird, but it cooks evenly. It cooks very quickly, about an hour and a half, hour 45 minutes. There's no rubbery bottom. Now, you don't get that traditional bird presentation, but I don't really care about that. I just want my food to be delicious. So I make that cornbread biscuit dressing as dressing, okay, in a casserole. Sometimes I'll do some mushrooms in with it. I have done it with the bulk sage, kind of like that breakfast sausage that you crumble up. That's really good in it, but it doesn't need it. I do like the wild mushroom with the herbs though. So that is, my mouth is watering, my stuffing story. So I want to hear, do you have one? And I'll tell you why. So at Christmas, I normally do some kind of beef roast, like a prime rib roast or a beef tenderloin, and I'll make a stuffing, well, a dressing with it because I don't stuff the beef. And this year, I don't want my Thanksgiving dressing, so I'd like to hear how your family makes it. Also, say, for instance, You had it one way growing up, you got married, you go to your in-laws, they make it totally different and you like it better. Like, tell me, and then tell me what region you're in. I'd like to kind of see if that influenced the type of dressing or stuffing that you make. So back to the Christmas, where I want some ideas, is I could do the oyster stuffing. I kind of had in mind, I'm still open-minded about this. I was thinking I might do more like a savory bread pudding with more of a custardy kind of poured over I was going to do brioche bread and then a custard over it with, you know, caramelized shallots, fresh sage, and cranberries or dried cherries, something like, stupid. My mouth is watering. I thought I might do something like that. However, I'm open to trying oyster dressing. I can try oyster dressing from the cookbook if you're interested to see. Oh my gosh, what is the author's name? I'll put it up on the screen. No, I don't want to disrespect this woman for her wonderful contribution to the culinary community. But yeah, tell me what kind of dressing you eat, what you love. Is there something else unusual on your Thanksgiving table that's a little off the beaten path but very specific to your family that you have to have? I mean, I have to have my southern dressing now, so when I'm going to someone else's house, I make a pan, I take it with me. I try to be as respectful as possible. I still eat whatever they're preparing. I'm not a particularly fussy eater, but that's my one thing that I have to have now is my cornbread biscuit dressing. So I would love to hear from you. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone, and I'll talk to you in the comments. I answer all my comments, so let's get talking.